Hello, my name's Jacqueline Edwards and I'm the Customer Success Manager for Sales Methods. Welcome to everyone and thank you for joining us today for the first of our monthly training webinars. As I said, this is the first of our planned monthly training sessions. Our Senior Business Analyst, Charlie Connor, will be giving a demonstration today of the whole of OrgChartPlus. The following sessions, we plan to concentrate on more in-depth parts of the product and be driven by feedback from our customers. And so please let us know what you'd like to see in the following sessions. We expect to have time for questions at the end of the presentation. And if we can't answer everybody's question, then we will do so via email afterwards. And so please send them through to us. Just one more request before I hand over to Charlie. We'd very much like to ask you to join our Sales Methods LinkedIn group so that we can keep you up to date with new features and products. We will email the link to you at the end of the session, but it's Sales Methods. Thank you very much, and over to you, Charlie.
Cool, thanks very much for that, Jackie, and hello everyone, wherever you are in the world, and thanks very much for joining again. And so, so I'm just going to take you through a pretty thorough run through of the tool and kind of what the capability and the functionality is. And then at the end, I can also show you a little bit about how you can actually export some of the data that we capture as well. So I'm just going to navigate to Salesforce. So hopefully you can all see my screen. So as you can see, hopefully at the moment, I've got an account page open, and OrgChartPlus is obviously our relationship mapping tool. And it's completely native within Salesforce, which is one of the first things I'll say, because what that essentially means is that everything you do within the tool writes back to the database and vice versa. So any changes you make in Salesforce write to the tool, and any changes in the tool write back to the Salesforce database. The tool sits within your accounts and opportunities, and the tool's pretty much exactly the same there. I've got an account open at the moment, as you can see here, and the button appears in our demo org at the top here, as you can see. But then if I just quickly hop into this opportunity, you'll see it in exactly the same place as well. So I'm going to use this account as for the demo purposes, and then simply to navigate to the tool, we just have to click on the button and the tool will open itself for us as well. So when we start to actually head into the tool, what you will see as a first instance, so hopefully, here we go, you come to this first view here where you're asked to do a couple of different things. You can either create a chart from scratch if you haven't created one already, or you can open a chart that you've previously created. So in terms of opening charts that you've previously made, one of the cool things about the tool is that there's actually no limit to the amount of charts that you can create per account or opportunity. And one of the main reasons we see for that, just in this example, is within an account, if you're looking at a really large account with lots of contacts, then you might not necessarily want to have just one massive chart with all the contacts in that, because it can probably be quite difficult to manage. If you wanted to split it up into more manageable chunks, whether it's perhaps different geographical locations or different departments, it's completely up to you how you want to manage that. But as I said, you can create as many different charts as you would like. In terms of creating charts, there are two different types of charts that you can create. So you can create either a reports to or a decision tree chart. A reports to chart is more likely going to be used within an account because it's going to be using that reporting structure. And what it does to help try and pre-populate these charts is it uses the reports to field, which is a standard field in Salesforce on the contact record. It's not necessarily that important if you don't use the reports to field at the moment. I know certain companies use it a lot, whereas other companies don't. What it just allows you to do is it allows you to pre-populate the charts, as I mentioned, and then as you start to use the tool, it populates that reports to field for you. So the next time you build a chart for that company, you can automatically pre-populate those charts instead of having to go and build those again. A decision tree chart, on the other hand, is more likely going to be used in an opportunity because it ignores that reporting structure that you've already got in Salesforce. So if you're looking at a decision tree, you might be targeting someone within the organization who isn't necessarily the most senior, and then that might mean that you want to kind of shuffle around the hierarchy and how the org chart looks. And if you wanted to do that, as I said, without actually affecting that reporting structure you've created, you would use a decision tree chart. In terms of, you've got these select initial imports as well. So this is just kind of a step that you can do before you create the chart, in terms of if you wanted to bring in all your contacts from the account or opportunity that you're looking at, any related external contacts that might have some sort of relationships, or you can import your account team as well. So those will be your team members. You then obviously just give the chart a name, and then once you click on create, that will set you up in order to get going. I'm going to open up a chart that we previously created for the purposes of the demo, because it's got a bunch of information already in there. So if I just click on open, then that'll open up the tool for us. So over here, so at the top left-hand corner, we can see we've got these 3 different views. So this view is the very first view of OrgChartPlus, which is called the matrix. We've then got the second view, which is the org chart, and then finally we've got the molecule view. I'm going to explain these 2 views as we start to go through. Typically, I would suggest that you start with the matrix. By no means is that a necessity, but it's something that we would advise, because this is where you really get down the information that you're then going to actually be able to leverage when you're actually using the tools. So what I can see here, so down here on the left-hand side, I can see I've got my client contacts. So these will all be Salesforce contacts within the database. And the way that I bring these guys in is by using this contacts button at the top. So if I click on that, we've got 2 different options here in terms of importing contacts. We can either import a contact directly from Salesforce, or we can add a new contact entirely if they don't exist in the database already. So if I click on import contact, we can see we've got a few different options within this pop-up. We can either search for the individual by name if we know who we're looking for. We can search by account if we know which account they're in, because we're not necessarily limited to the account that we're looking at. So if we were, for example, if we were looking or if we were working with a consultant who we wanted to bring in some of their contacts as well, you can do that by searching for their account in here. Or alternatively, you could click on account on the left-hand side, which brings up everybody within the account that you're looking at. And then you can either select individuals, you can hold shift if you wanted to select multiple individuals, or if you wanted to, down here on the right-hand side, you can click on add for just the people you've selected, or you can add all of them as well. We've then got these 2 options here, which are import managers as subordinates, and these use the reports to field to help us kind of pre-populate, as I mentioned before, the chart, so that we don't have to go and find the individuals. If I wanted to bring in somebody and all their known subordinates, I just click on this button here, and then once I click on add, it would then bring in everyone that we know within the database. The other option that I had was to add a new contact entirely. So if I click on that, it then opens up this new tab, and it takes me straight to the standard new contact page in Salesforce. So again, this is all completely standard stuff. If I scroll down, we can see it's all pretty normal. All you have to then do is put in all the information as you would normally. Then once you click on save, what will happen is this page will disappear, and the contact will appear at the bottom of your list on the left-hand side within the tool. So again, just to reiterate, because the tool's native, you don't have to worry about any kind of duplication. Once you've entered in the details of that particular contact, you then don't have to worry about entering them again. So that's mostly everything about your contacts on the left-hand side here. At the top, what we can see is we've got our team members, and then we've got some competitors as well. So our team members will typically be Salesforce users, so people who have a license within our org, and then competitors comes from a list that you can create as well. So in order to bring those guys in, we use the team button, which is next to contacts, and there we have these 3 different options. We've got import team member, import a partner contact, which basically means if you wanted to bring in a contact from Salesforce as part of your team, you'd click on that, and then you can also import competitors. So just to give you an example, if I click on import team member, this kind of pop-up box turns up. We can then either click on all team members, which again will just give you a list of all the Salesforce users within your org. You can click on account, which will bring up everybody who's been assigned to the particular account that you're looking at. Or again, you can search for the individual by name if you knew who you were looking for as well. And then it's a very similar process in terms of the partner contacts and competitors. If I just give you competitors as an example, you can either click on all, or you can just search for them if you know who you're looking for as well, and then they'll appear over here. So once you've kind of done that, that's when you've got all the individuals in. So you've got your client contacts down here on the left, you've got your team members and maybe some competitors at the top. That's when you want to start actually populating what we call the attributes. So the attributes include these two columns over here on the far left, which is influence and opinion. And then over here on the right-hand side, we've got all these letters, which are the levels of intimacy that exist within and the strength of relationships that exist within the organization and ourselves. So just to talk about these first two on the left-hand side. So influence is talking about the influence that this person has within their own organization, whereas the opinion is talking about what is their opinion of us as an organization. So do they like us or not? In order to change these, I can do it a couple of different ways. I can either right-click on these contacts and go down to sales attributes, and I can change for influence from none, low, medium, and high here, or then I can do the same with opinion, or I can use this attribute section at the top of the page. So I've got influence, none, low, medium, and high, and the same with opinion. So opinion is quite easy to see because you've got the thumbs up, thumbs down scenario. Influence is a little bit more difficult to see in this view because they're a little bit small, but as soon as I move into the org chart view, you'll be able to see that a lot more clearly. So that's how I edit those. And then if you notice at the moment, the intimacy option actually isn't available to us. And the reason for that is because we don't know which relationship we're talking about. But let's say as soon as I click on one of these squares, and then you can see the two individuals are highlighted, so it's easy to tell who we're talking about. Now that intimacy option becomes available to us. So now we've got these four different options, which mean T, which is they're a target of ours, but we're not in contact with them. C means that there's been some contact. R, there's regular contact. And S, there's a strong relationship that exists between the two people. So it's really important to try and get as much of this information down as possible, because this is the information that we're actually then going to be able to leverage in the second two views. A couple of other things as well, which are slightly more admin based, but can also be pretty useful. If I'm looking at the tool and I'm looking at these titles for the contacts, one of the things that I can actually do is if I right click on a title, I can edit it within the tool. So if I click on edit title, you can obviously change it in there, click on OK, and then you're away. But one of the cool things which actually is a little bit of a differentiator in terms of the database is that you can change multiple titles at once, and then as soon as you click on save, it then shoots all that information straight back to the database. So it's kind of, instead of going in and out of different contact records in order to change all of those, you can actually just change all of them within OrgChartPlus, click on save, and then you're done. You don't have to worry about any other editing or anything like that. The other thing I was just going to say, which is relatively similar, is that if you right click on these contacts at the bottom and you have this option anywhere in the tool, is you can either delete the contact from the chart specifically, or you can actually delete them from the Salesforce account, or if you're working in an opportunity, from that opportunity as a whole. So the benefit of that is, let's say I wanted to select a few different people. If I click and drag all the way down, I've now multi-selected these people. If I then right click, I can then actually bulk delete contacts. So instead of kind of, again, bulk deleting in Salesforce can be a little bit difficult. If I wanted to just do that, I could either delete all of them from the chart or from the Salesforce account as a whole. So again, it just might save us some time when we're managing our contacts. So I think that's probably everything in terms of the matrix view. So I'm just going to move into the org chart view now. And this is the view that we come to. So we've obviously pre-built this chart, but what you will originally see is, much like you can see these contacts at the top, you'll see all of these contacts within what we call this loading bay. So in order to start actually building out the hierarchy, it's a very simple process. It's just a drag and drop kind of scenario. So if I thought Leanne here reported into someone in the chart, I drag her down, and let's say she reported into Rod Hewitt over here, I would just hover over Rod, let go of the mouse, and then that populates that relationship in there for us. And it's as simple as that. So you can start to move people around, see who people report into, and then start to build out your chart. And again, obviously, you can move people from within the chart, you can move whole groups. It's completely up to you. obviously, but it's fairly intuitive, so you don't have to worry about the spacing or any kind of things like that. One of the things that we can also do is we can also put our team members on this org chart. So if I pop back into the matrix quickly and I look at one of these team members, let's say Simon here, and let's say I wanted to show him on the org chart, I right click on Simon, click on show on org chart, and if I go back to the org chart, we can now see in the loading bay, we've got this green contact box, which is showing us that it's a team member of ours. So if I drag Simon down onto the page, we can then put him there. And one of the things that I can do is, if I right click on Simon, I can actually start to build informal relationships that he has into the organization. So if I'm looking at these here, I can see all these different options. So if I thought that Simon knows somebody, I'd click on knows, click on that person, and then that relationship gets put into the page like that. And really, it's just a nice way to be able to look at the different touch points that we've got into the organization, so that obviously we can know those relationships, because they might be just as important as the formal relationships that we've got, and those strengths of intimacy as well. Some other things that we can do within this view is we can, if we want to, hide the loading bay by clicking on that arrow at the bottom there. So if I do that, I can bring in the page as a whole. And then a bunch of stuff that I can actually do is available to us when we right click on these contacts. So if I right click on these contacts, we can see we've got this whole different list here. So the details tab button here, if I click on that, that then opens up this contact details box, where I've got a whole bunch of information surrounding the individual. So I've got some contact details at the top there, and then anything that's underlined is a hyperlink. So if I wanted to go straight to the account, I could do that from here to the contact or send an email. More than capable of doing that. And then below, we've actually got the previous accounts and opportunities that this person has been in, and the attributes that they had within those accounts. So obviously this is a little bit extreme because it's one of our demo orgs, but you can see we've got a whole bunch of different accounts here, what their influence and opinion has been, and the same with opportunities as well. So it just gives us a nice view about what the kind of past history has been for a certain contact, so that we can be sort of better prepared if we were to meet them again in the future. These two tabs as well, we know we've got some information in one of these two tabs when the little notepad appears within the contact box. So if I can see that contact box, that notepad within the contact box, we know we've got some information in either contact description or account notes. So contact description is a direct mirror of the description field within the contact record. So anything that I see here, I'd see on the contact page. And if I was to delete any of this stuff, and then as soon as I click on save, obviously it would shoot back and replicate there. Whereas the account notes is essentially just kind of another place for any sort of relevant information that you might think would be useful. So if somebody else was using the tool and they came in and had a look at the account notes, there might be some information there that they're gonna find useful. Some other stuff that we can see within the contact box. So obviously, as I was mentioning before, you can see the influence, and it's a lot more clear in this view here because you can see that level of shading behind the contact box. You've also then got the opinion, which is the thumbs up or thumbs down. And then you've also got the intimacy as well. The default version of this intimacy is actually, so it's the strongest relationship that this person has with someone within our organization. So we don't necessarily know who Alfred has a strong relationship with, but we do know he's got a strong relationship with someone. If I wanted to be a bit more specific in terms of who I was looking for, I can change it by using this focus area at the top. So if I went down and I was to click on one of our team members, let's say it's Alan, now we know that Alfred is a target of Alan specifically, and that he's got a strong relationship with William. So now we can, if we wanted to have a more specific view, that's how we would do that. But as I mentioned, the default option is this highest intimacy at the top. So if I click on that, all of the information comes back as it was at the start. Again, just going back to that right click menu, if I right click on the contact, we spoke about that details area. We can then got this import by relationship option. So here again, we can actually import managers and subordinates that we know of using that reports to field. So if you wanted to just bring in kind of the head person who you were thinking about, and then just bring in automatically every subordinate that reported into them, you can do that using this. You can then start to set new tasks and events. So if I was to click on new task, all it will do is it will take me to the standard new task page in Salesforce. And this is quite nice because it's just a nice piece of kind of workflow that allows the kind of process of setting actions and tasks a lot more seamless in terms of if I'm looking at the org chart and let's say I'm a manager and I wanted to set some tasks to somebody in my team, I could then change the assigned user to somebody else other than myself, but it's already related it to that particular contact that I was looking at. So then if I wanted to get all the proper information in there, click on save, that will then go straight back to the database. And again, because the tool is completely native, you don't have to worry about any other duplications or anything like that. It's exactly the same with events, obviously. Again, it's just the standard Salesforce functionality. A bit further down, we've got the sales attributes. So here we've got the influence and opinion again, which we've seen before. We've then got the relationship options, which I've seen before as well, because you can do them internally as well as externally. So if I thought that somebody socialized, so let's say Alfred socializes with Rod, if I click on Rod, you can build them internally as well. So you're not limited to doing it from a team member. You can do it internally because obviously those internal politics might be really crucial if you're looking at an account. We've then got this color option, and what I think most of you guys will see, because this has been slightly customized, is you'd see a palette of just different colors without any labels. And what these do is they give the contact boxes a colored border. What we've actually done here, and it's something that you might want to do moving forward in your organization, is to create a standard throughout the organization that allows you to pick out certain specific colors and then give them labels. So we just picked out a few roles here. And so let's say Alfred was a champion of ours. If I click on that, we can now see that he's got that colored border in there for us as well. So it's just designed to give us kind of a nice, quick overview about who different people are for various different reasons. And you can obviously manage that whichever way you'd like. The last couple of options here, we've got some layout options. So if I wanted to show the subordinates vertically, I could do that. Typically, people probably wouldn't use that feature because they're more than likely going to want it to be displayed like the classic org chart with the horizontal aspect. And then you can also hide the subordinates as well. So if you were looking at quite a large org chart and you wanted to hide certain subordinates, you could pick on one of these and then it would just hide all those for you temporarily. We can then show and hide some fields if we thought those were relevant. And then we've also got these delete from chart and delete from Salesforce account options as well at the bottom, much like we did in the matrix view. One of the things that we also advise our customers to do, and it's something that we try and do as much as we can as well, is we actually share these org charts with our customers or potential customers. So one of the things that really gets, one of the things we get out of that is it allows the customer to open up about what their actual structure looks like, and it's a much better way for you to actually get down on the paper what the correct hierarchy is, because it's a much more fruitful process rather than just kind of asking questions on emails or on phone calls and things like that, which can be difficult to manage. If you just share this with them, they can then point out where you think you've gone wrong or whether you've got things right and that kind of thing. One of the things, however, is you might not want to show them that you think they don't like us, or if you think they socialize with someone, then or there is some potentially sensitive information within here. So one of the things that we do is if I click on this chart button, down the bottom we've got what we call the privacy mode. So if I click on that, it hides all the potentially sensitive information so that we know if we're going to show this to someone, we're not going to upset anyone or we're not going to anger anyone or anything like that. So we can walk into a meeting confident that we can just show them the org chart without causing any offense or anything like that. It doesn't delete any of the information, it just hides it temporarily. So if I click on privacy mode again, everything appears as it was. Another option which you might have seen just below that is what we call show legend. So if I click on that, it brings up this on-screen legend. So if I was relatively new to the tool, or if I was showing the tool to someone, so that if you didn't want to constantly keep on trying to refer to what these different things mean, if you bring up the legend, you've got all these different options within there, so you know exactly what's happening within the tool. So that's pretty much everything on the org chart view. So I'm just going to finally move into the molecule. And so this view populates itself, so you don't have to worry about any dragging and dropping or anything like that. it uses the information from the previous two views and all the relationships that you've captured to populate for us. So what you can see as the default is us as an organization in the middle. So you've got the highest intimacy in there. Then you've got everybody who has a strong relationship with us in the middle. So you can see all those S's that we've created are in there closest into us. And as you start to move out, they actually start to get weaker and weaker. So you can see some R's out here and then some C's on the outside as well. But one of the things that we want to do with this view is, and one of the great things about it, is that we can actually make anybody within the chart the center, whether it's a team member, client contact. So if I'm looking at the center here, one of the things that I might be able to see is, so if I'm looking at Boris Becker, for example, we can see that he's a regular contact of ours. He doesn't like us, and he's very influential. So he might be a key person whose support we may need to win back in order to move this account forward, or whatever it happens to be. So in the same way that I did in the org chart view, if I use this focus area at the top here, I can actually then go and pick somebody to be the center. So if I wanted it to be a team member, I could pick one of these guys at the top, and then it separates and becomes the client contacts. And so if I click on Boris Becker, as you can see there, it puts him straight into the middle of the view, and then it builds his relationships surrounding that. So now we know that he has very strong relationships with these three team members, and he also has strong relationships with these two client contacts as well. So if I then wanted to maybe go and put my best foot forward in terms of winning his support back, I might actually do that by using a few of these guys. So we could get in touch with one of our team members in order to help us set up an intro, or if I knew one of these two guys, I could then go to one of these guys to set up the intro instead. So that's kind of a real world example of how that might work. And I guess in terms of the functionality, that's a pretty good run through of how the tool works. What I'm going to show you now is how you can actually export the tool. And I'll use the org chart for this because typically that's the view that people are going to want to export. And the way that I do that is if I click on chart, we've got some admin at the top here. So if I wanted to create a new chart, open a chart and things like that, I can do that. But here, these four different options are where I can actually export them. So the first option here is print chart. So if I click on that, it takes me to this view here where I can fiddle about with the page layout. So if I wanted to make it landscape, I could do that. If I wanted to print a legend, I can click that checkbox and the legend appears down there. And then obviously I can click on print and I can take it into meetings or something like that. The other options that we've got, so we've got export, and all these three options download directly to our computer. So what these do is, so the first one here, which is export to image, if I click on that, it brings up the image here. We can fiddle about with the layout and various things like that. We can then obviously give the image a name, click on show legend again, and it gives you the legend down there. Once I give it a name and click on save, it will just download to my computer as a PNG file. So I could put that in an email, or in a Word document, whatever you like, but that's all it is an image. The next two options that I've got are we can export it directly into a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation. So they're pretty similar processes. So I'll use the presentation just as an example. So if I click on that, we can either choose a file that we've already created. So if we've been working on an account plan or an RFP, something along those lines, and I wanted to include an org chart, I can choose my file and it will come directly into that presentation, and you can even specify which slide you'd want it to appear at. Or if you wanted to start from scratch, you can select blank presentation, click on show legend, click on OK, and then all that will do is it will shoot out the PowerPoint. It should be pretty quick. There you go, so it's down there on the left, and so that's ready to open. And the way that that will appear is if I open up one of the PowerPoints which I've already created. So this is what it will look like. But then one of the cool things about this is that it's actually still editable within this format. So hopefully that comes back in a second. Whilst that's just working itself out there, I'll just show you briefly the other options. So export as attachment is exactly the same three options. So we've got image, Word document, and PowerPoint presentation. But instead of downloading to your computer, they download to the notes and attachments section in Salesforce. So the use case for that might be if you're using the tool and you wanted to share something with somebody, if you wanted to share one of these org charts with somebody within your organization, you can use this as a method of sharing it with everyone who has access to the account or opportunity without having to send out emails and all that kind of thing. Because obviously the point of Salesforce is to try and make everything available online to everyone who needs it. So if you wanted to do that, you can use this attachment capability as well. The last option there is just a URL. So if I click on that, it gives you a URL which you can then send to somebody in order to send them straight to the tool. Let's see if that PowerPoint has allowed me to. Yeah. So one of the cool things about this is it's actually still editable within this view here. So for example, if somebody's name changed or if the person, the CEO, might have moved on, you can actually still change their name within that. You can delete certain attributes if you wanted to. Everything's still editable up to the point of you can't drag and drop, because PowerPoint's not quite that sophisticated. If it was, it'd be marvelous. But unfortunately, if the dragging and dropping you still have to do within the tool. But as I said, things like names and titles and stuff like that, you can still edit within the PowerPoint itself. So I think that's pretty much everything. One of the things that I'll just show you as well, because I know people are moving into Lightning, and that's something that is going to be happening more and more. So I'll just show you briefly how it actually looks within Lightning as well. So if I switch to Lightning Experience, there are a couple of different ways that we would describe in terms of actually accessing the tool, but there are a couple of different, there's a new way which we actually think is quite good in terms of visibility, which some of you guys might not have seen yet. So if you haven't moved to Lightning, or if you have and you haven't got this might be something that you want to bring up, and we can work with you after the webinar in terms of getting that set up. But if I open up an account, let's have a look, go back into the one I was in. So the two different ways are, you can either have it as a tab, its own tab within this actual page layout section. So if I was to click on org chart, it will appear here. So you can actually come and use the tool within the account page itself. So you don't have to worry about kind of going in and out of the full page screen. And then obviously if you were to click on global, I was open the same chart that I had open. One of the things I can do is if I click on this full screen option, it then takes me to this full screen anyway. So if I wanted to do that, I can, more than happy to use it there. Or if I wanted to have it as a full page, you might have it as one of these buttons or one of the drop downs on the right hand side as well. So that's how you do that. Again, if you haven't seen that before, and if it's something that you would like to have, please just let us know, send us an email after the demo, and we can work with you guys in getting that set up. But in terms of the functionality of the tool and the demo, I think that's pretty much everything. One of the things I'd also like to say, I'd just like to reiterate what Jackie said at the start, is if you could please join our LinkedIn profile. So I've got that open here, which you can have a look at. One of the things that we do is we share hints and tips on a relatively regular basis. So if you wanted to have a look at this, then you can be first to know about new features and all that kind of stuff. We'll be sending a link out after the webinar in terms of you can go and have a look at that. And then one of the things that we would also request, which would be great if you could do it, if you have been using the tool for a while, or if you're relatively new, is if you could just write us a review on the App Exchange. So obviously, if you come to our page on the App Exchange, search for org charts or OrgChartPlus or something like that. If you then just scroll down a little bit, you've got the review section, and then you can just write us a review. So if you could do that, we'd be eternally grateful. That'd be wonderful. And then obviously, if you have any questions, please let us know, or anything like that. But yeah, so I think that pretty much wraps up the demo. So I've been checking to see if we've got any questions, and I don't think we have got any. If anybody do have any questions, please feel free to chuck them in that questions section. If not, please feel free to give us an email. I'm more than happy to set up a separate call with individuals or something like that if they need to. But yeah, please, as I say, get in touch if you need to. My email's on the screen now if you want to jot that down. And then if you start using the tool and you have some questions along the way, again, please just feel free to get in shout. So thanks very much for joining, everyone. And again, if there's anything that you want to see in the next webinar, so if there's any specific areas that you want to concentrate on, please let us know. But other than that, thanks very much and enjoy the rest of your day.